It's official. The wrestling world just witnessed the most earth-shattering, jaw-dropping, absolutely nuclear-level revelation in WWE history. And if you missed Money in the Bank 2025, you missed a moment that will be talked about for decades. Roman Reigns didn't just reveal his new Shield members. He completely obliterated every prediction, shattered every expectation, and delivered a bombshell so devastating that the entire WWE Universe is still picking their jaws up off the floor. This isn't just another wrestling storyline, folks. This is a seismic shift that's sending shockwaves through the entire sports entertainment industry, and the ripple effects are already tearing through social media like a Category 5 hurricane. The tribal chief just changed the game forever, and what happened at Money in the Bank will go down as one of the most legendary moments in professional wrestling history. The controversy bomb that just exploded is so massive, so unprecedented, that even hardcore wrestling insiders are calling it the most shocking twist they've ever witnessed. Sources close to WWE's creative team are confirming that this revelation was kept under such tight security that only a handful of people knew the truth. And the fallout is already catastrophic for multiple superstars who thought they were safe. We're talking about careers potentially ending, storylines being completely rewritten, and a power shift so dramatic that it's making Paul Heyman's faction look like amateur hour. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the implications are absolutely mind-blowing. Multiple sources confirm that backstage panic is spreading like wildfire, with several wrestlers reportedly demanding emergency meetings with Triple H after witnessing what just went down. This isn't just wrestling entertainment anymore. This is a full-scale industry earthquake that's reshaping everything we thought we knew about WWE's future direction. Here's what gives this story nuclear-level credibility. We're not talking about internet rumors or backstage gossip. Multiple witnesses inside the arena confirm that the reaction from fellow wrestlers was genuine shock, with several superstars visibly stunned at ringside. Documents obtained by wrestling journalists reveal that this storyline has been in development for months, with NDAs so strict that even top-tier wrestlers were kept in the dark. Sources familiar with WWE's creative process are calling this the most secretive project in company history, surpassing even the most guarded storylines of the past decade. Insiders claim that Roman Reigns himself was involved in handpicking these new Shield members, and the criteria he used will absolutely blow your mind when we reveal it. People close to the inner circle are whispering that this decision goes way deeper than just storyline purposes. There are real-world implications that could reshape WWE's entire power structure for years to come. The wrestling community is absolutely losing their minds right now, and if you're already feeling the electricity from this insanity, you need to smash that hype button, because this story gets 10 times more explosive from here. The comment sections across every wrestling platform are going completely nuclear, with fans dissecting every frame of footage, analyzing every facial expression, and connecting dots that reveal an even more shocking truth. Give points to this video, because what we're about to expose will change how you see WWE forever. The internet has turned into a detective agency overnight, with wrestling fans uncovering evidence that suggests this revelation was planned years in advance. Multiple sources verify that the wrestlers chosen for this new Shield weren't random picks. They were strategically selected based on criteria that will make your head spin when we break it down. The belonging you're feeling right now as part of this wrestling community is about to get even stronger, because we're all witnessing history together, and what comes next will unite the WWE Universe in ways we've never seen before. Let's rewind to the beginning of this absolutely legendary saga, because understanding how we got here makes the revelation even more earth-shattering. The Shield's original run from 2012 to 2014 wasn't just a faction, it was a revolutionary force that completely transformed WWE's landscape and launched three of the biggest superstars in modern wrestling history. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose didn't just debut as a group, they invaded WWE like a military unit, systematically dismantling the established order and creating chaos that redefined what a wrestling faction could accomplish. Their black tactical gear, their entrance through the crowd, their devastating triple powerbomb, Every element was designed to signal that something unprecedented was happening. Sources close to WWE's creative team from that era reveal that the Shield was originally conceived as a short-term storyline, but their chemistry and impact were so explosive that plans were completely rewritten. The faction's influence extended far beyond their active period, with their reunion moments consistently generating some of WWE's highest ratings and most emotional fan reactions. Wrestling historians are already calling their original run one of the most important storylines in WWE history, and what just happened at Money in the Bank proves that their legacy is far from over. The characters involved in this nuclear-level revelation each bring their own devastating backstories that make this moment even more impactful. Roman Reigns has evolved from the powerhouse enforcer of the Shield into the most dominant champion in WWE history, but his journey hasn't been without controversy. The tribal chief faced years of fan rejection, boos that could shake arenas, and criticism that nearly derailed his career before his heel turn transformed him into the most compelling character in wrestling. His acknowledgement-demanding persona and head-of-the-table mentality created a character so powerful that even his harshest critics had to respect his evolution. Paul Heyman's faction, featuring Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed, represents everything Roman has been fighting against. A collection of superstars united by their desire to dethrone the tribal chief and end his historic reign of dominance. Seth Rollins, Roman's former Shield brother turned bitter rival, brings a personal vendetta that cuts deeper than any championship dispute. His transformation from the architect of the Shield's destruction to the leader of an anti-Roman coalition represents one of wrestling's most complex character arcs. The psychological warfare between these former brothers has been building for years, creating emotional stakes that transcend typical wrestling rivalries. The timeline of events leading to this crisis reads like a perfectly crafted thriller that's been building tension for months. It started with subtle hints during Roman's championship defenses, moments where he seemed to be searching for something more than just victory. Sources familiar with WWE's long-term planning reveal that Roman's increasing isolation as champion was intentional, designed to create a narrative need for allies who could match his elevated status. Paul Heyman's faction formation was the catalyst that forced Roman's hand, creating a numbers disadvantage that threatened his dominance for the first time in years. The psychological pressure of facing multiple opponents while maintaining his head-of-the-table persona began showing cracks in Roman's armor, leading to more desperate tactics and increasingly personal attacks. Wrestling insiders claim that Roman's search for new Shield members wasn't just about evening the odds, it was about reclaiming the brotherhood that made him feel invincible during the Shield's original run. The months leading up to Crown Jewel 2025 saw Roman dropping cryptic hints about family and loyalty, references that now seem like obvious foreshadowing, but were dismissed as typical wrestling rhetoric at the time. The first warning signs that everyone missed were hiding in plain sight, but they were so subtle that even the most dedicated wrestling analysts didn't connect the dots until it was too late. Roman's entrance music began featuring slight modifications that hardcore fans noticed but couldn't explain, with additional instrumental layers that seemed to suggest multiple people rather than a single superstar. His in-ring psychology shifted subtly, with Roman occasionally looking toward the entrance during matches, as if expecting backup that never came. Sources close to WWE's production team now reveal that these were deliberate hints planted months in advance, designed to create subconscious anticipation for what was coming. The most obvious sign was Roman's increasing references to the bloodline, expanding beyond family. Comments that seemed like typical heel bragging but were actually laying groundwork for a much larger story. Wrestling journalists who reviewed footage from the past 6 months have identified at least a dozen moments where Roman's body language suggested he was planning something massive, from subtle glances at specific sections of the audience to hand gestures that now seem like coded signals to his future Shield brothers. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear-level insane. And what I'm about to tell you will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about WWE's power structure and Roman Reigns' master plan. The two superstars who emerged as Roman's new Shield members weren't just random selections or convenient storyline additions. They represent the most strategically brilliant, utterly devastating, and completely unprecedented recruitment in wrestling history. When those arena lights went black during Roman's entrance at Money in the Bank, and when those two hooded figures appeared beside him in modified Shield gear, the wrestling world witnessed something that insiders are calling the most shocking reveal since The Undertaker's debut. Sources close to WWE's creative team confirmed that this moment was planned with military precision, involving fake storylines, misdirection campaigns, and security measures so intense that even top executives were kept in the dark about the true identities until the last possible moment. The psychological impact on Paul Heyman's faction was immediate and devastating, with multiple witnesses confirming that Seth Rollins' face went completely white when he realized what was happening. This wasn't just a faction formation, it was a declaration of war that changed the entire landscape of WWE in a single moment. The detailed breakdown of this shocking truth reveals layers of strategy and planning that make this revelation even more mind-blowing than it initially appeared. The first new Shield member is Francis Ngannou, the former UFC heavyweight champion, whose transition to WWE represents the most significant crossover signing in sports entertainment history. Sources familiar with the negotiations reveal that Ngannou's WWE contract was finalized in complete secrecy, with meetings conducted in private locations and NDAs so strict that even his own management team wasn't fully informed about the wrestling component. His legitimate combat sports credentials bring a level of authenticity and danger to the Shield that no wrestling faction has ever possessed, creating a psychological advantage that goes beyond scripted storylines. The second revelation is equally earth-shattering. Braun Strowman's return to WWE wasn't just a comeback, it was a carefully orchestrated reunion with Roman Reigns that reframes their entire history together. Wrestling historians are already noting that Strowman and Roman's previous feuds now seem like elaborate misdirection designed to hide their eventual alliance. Multiple sources confirm that Strowman's release from WWE was partially motivated by his desire to eventually return as part of this specific storyline, making his departure and comeback part of a multi-year narrative strategy that nobody saw coming. The immediate reactions and fallout from this revelation created chaos that's still rippling through the wrestling industry days later. Backstage sources describe the scene as complete pandemonium, with wrestlers, producers, and executives scrambling to understand the implications of what just happened. Paul Heyman's faction members were reportedly so stunned that they broke character momentarily, with Seth Rollins visibly shaking his head in disbelief and Braun Breaker looking genuinely concerned about facing this new version of the Shield. The live audience reaction was so intense that it registered on seismic equipment in the surrounding area, with the collective roar of 70,000 fans creating sound levels that WWE's audio engineers had never recorded before. Wrestling journalists who were present described the moment as electric beyond description, with the energy in the arena shifting so dramatically that it felt like witnessing a historical event rather than a wrestling show. Multiple sources confirm that several wrestlers who weren't involved in the storyline requested immediate meetings with creative teams to discuss how this development would affect their own characters and future plans. The social media explosion that followed broke multiple platform records and created trending topics that dominated global conversations for hours after the reveal. Twitter crashed temporarily due to the volume of wrestling-related posts, with number New Shield and number Roman Reigns generating over 2 million tweets in the first hour alone. If you're feeling the electricity from this absolutely insane revelation, you need to hype this video right now, because your points are literally helping us fund more investigations into WWE's secret storylines that powerful people want buried. Instagram and TikTok were flooded with reaction videos from wrestling fans, celebrities, and even legitimate fighters who couldn't believe what they were witnessing. The crossover appeal of having Francis Ngannou in a wrestling storyline brought mainstream sports media attention that WWE hasn't received in years, with ESPN, Fox Sports, and major news outlets covering the story as a legitimate sports development rather than just entertainment news. Wrestling podcasts and YouTube channels saw their subscriber counts explode as fans desperately searched for analysis and insider information about what this revelation means for WWE's future. The internet turned into a massive detective agency overnight, with wrestling fans conducting investigations that would make professional journalists jealous. Reddit communities dedicated to wrestling analysis began dissecting every frame of Money in the Bank footage, identifying subtle details that revealed just how carefully this moment was planned. Frame-by-frame analysis of Roman's entrance revealed that the lighting changes weren't random. They were specifically designed to create maximum dramatic impact when the new Shield members were revealed. Hardcore fans discovered that the modified Shield gear worn by Ngannou and Strowman contained design elements that referenced both their individual careers and their new alliance with Roman, suggesting that costume designers had been working on this project for months. The most dedicated investigators found evidence in old interviews and social media posts that now seem like obvious hints about this eventual partnership, creating a timeline that shows this storyline was in development far longer than anyone realized. Multiple insider sources and leaked evidence have emerged that paint a picture of the most secretive wrestling storyline in modern history. Documents obtained by wrestling journalists reveal that Francis Ngannou's WWE negotiations began over a year ago, with initial discussions happening during his final UFC fights. Sources close to the negotiations confirm that Ngannou was specifically recruited for this Shield storyline, rather than being signed as a general WWE performer, making his entire WWE career purpose-built around this moment. Leaked emails between WWE executives show that Braun Strowman's release was partially orchestrated to facilitate his eventual return as part of this storyline, with his time away from WWE being used to develop his character and build anticipation for his comeback. Multiple sources verify that Roman Reigns was directly involved in recruiting both men, using his influence and vision for the Shield's future to convince them to join WWE specifically for this project. The level of secrecy surrounding these negotiations was so intense that even Paul Heyman, Roman's on-screen advocate, wasn't fully informed about the plan until days before Crown Jewel. Behind the scenes, power struggles that led to this moment reveal a complex web of creative decisions and political maneuvering that makes this storyline even more fascinating. Sources familiar with WWE's creative process confirm that this new Shield formation was Roman Reigns' idea, pitched directly to Triple H as a way to elevate his character and create fresh storylines that could carry WWE for years. The decision to bring in Francis Ngannou required approval from multiple departments and involved negotiations with UFC that were so complex they required legal teams from both organizations. Braun Strowman's return was complicated by his previous departure circumstances, with sources revealing that his comeback required rebuilding relationships with WWE management and proving his commitment to this specific storyline. The creative team faced the challenge of integrating two very different performers into the Shield's established dynamic while maintaining the faction's core identity and appeal. The financial and legal implications of this revelation extend far beyond typical wrestling storylines and into legitimate business territory that affects WWE's entire corporate structure. Francis Ngannou's contract reportedly includes clauses that tie his compensation to pay-per-view performance and merchandise sales, making him one of the highest-paid wrestlers in WWE history, despite being a newcomer to the industry. Sources familiar with the financial details confirm that his signing required approval from WWE's board of directors due to the unprecedented nature of his contract terms. Braun Strowman's return involved renegotiating his previous contract termination and included provisions that protect both him and WWE from future disputes. The legal complexity of integrating a former UFC champion into WWE's storylines required new contract language that addresses everything from injury liability to cross-promotional opportunities that could affect both wrestling and mixed martial arts industries. But that's not even the most shocking part of this absolutely mind-blowing story, because what we've uncovered about the long-term implications of this new Shield formation will completely change how you see WWE's future direction. Sources close to WWE's strategic planning reveal that this isn't just a storyline. It's the foundation for a complete transformation of how WWE approaches talent recruitment and character development. The success of bringing Francis Ngannou into wrestling has already sparked discussions about signing other legitimate fighters and athletes, potentially creating a new era where the line between sports entertainment and legitimate competition becomes increasingly blurred. Multiple insiders confirm that WWE executives are viewing this as a test case for future crossover signings that could revolutionize the entire industry. The psychological impact on other wrestlers has been profound, with several superstars reportedly requesting meetings to discuss how they can elevate their own characters to compete with this new level of authenticity and star power. New evidence that's emerging daily continues to reveal the massive scope of planning that went into this moment and the even bigger plans that are still unfolding. Wrestling journalists have discovered that WWE filed trademark applications for several Shield-related terms months before Crown Jewel, suggesting that merchandise and branding strategies were developed long before the public reveal. Sources familiar with WWE's production schedule confirm that multiple storylines were filmed and prepared as backup plans in case this revelation didn't go as planned, showing the level of preparation that went into ensuring this moment's success. Leaked production notes reveal that the entrance choreography was rehearsed dozens of times in secret locations, with body doubles used during some rehearsals to maintain secrecy even from WWE's own crew members. The most shocking evidence comes from social media analysis that shows Francis Ngannou and Braun Strowman were both following specific WWE-related accounts and liking posts that now seem like obvious coordination, creating a digital trail that hardcore fans are using to piece together the timeline of this massive conspiracy. Key players' desperate responses to this earth-shattering revelation have created even more drama and exposed the panic that's spreading through WWE's roster. Seth Rollins, who built his entire recent character around opposing Roman Reigns, has reportedly been in emergency creative meetings trying to figure out how his faction can possibly compete with this new version of The Shield. Sources close to Rollins confirm that he's genuinely concerned about his storyline relevance now that Roman has recruited legitimate fighters and monsters to his cause. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, the other members of Paul Heyman's faction, are said to be questioning whether their alliance can survive against opponents who bring real-world combat credentials and supernatural strength to their battles. Multiple wrestlers not directly involved in this storyline have reportedly approached WWE management, requesting character changes and new directions, fearing that their current personas will seem insignificant compared to this new standard of authenticity and power that the Shield now represents. Public opinion has shifted so dramatically that it's creating ripple effects throughout the entire wrestling industry and beyond. Social media sentiment analysis shows that Roman Reigns' approval rating among wrestling fans has reached an all-time high, with even his harshest critics admitting that this strategic masterstroke has elevated him to legendary status. The crossover appeal of having Francis Ngannou in WWE has brought mainstream sports attention that's attracting new fans who never watched wrestling before, expanding WWE's audience in ways that traditional storylines never could. This is the kind of content that changes entire industries. Show your support by hyping this video so more people can see what's really happening behind the scenes in WWE's power structure. Wrestling analysts are calling this the most successful faction reveal in modern history, with some comparing its impact to the formation of the original NWO in terms of cultural significance and industry influence. This isn't just about Roman Reigns and the Shield anymore. What we're witnessing is a seismic shift that's sending shockwaves through every corner of the wrestling industry and forcing competitors to completely rethink their strategies. AEW executives are reportedly in emergency meetings discussing how to respond to WWE's unprecedented move of successfully integrating a legitimate UFC champion into their storylines. Sources familiar with AEW's creative process confirm that they're exploring their own crossover opportunities with other combat sports organizations. But insiders admit that WWE's first mover advantage with Ngannou has set a standard that will be extremely difficult to match. The psychological impact on wrestlers across all promotions has been profound, with many questioning whether traditional wrestling training and character development are still sufficient in an era where legitimate fighters are joining the industry. Multiple sources verify that wrestling schools and training facilities are already adapting their curricula to include more legitimate combat training, recognizing that the industry's standards have been permanently elevated. Industry-wide panic and changes are already becoming visible as wrestling promotions scramble to adapt to this new reality that WWE has created. Independent wrestling organizations are reporting increased interest from former MMA fighters and legitimate athletes who see WWE's successful integration of Francis Ngannou as proof that crossover opportunities exist. Sources close to major wrestling promotions confirm that talent scouts are now actively recruiting from combat sports organizations, boxing gyms, and athletic competitions in ways they never did before. The financial implications are staggering, with wrestling industry analysts predicting that crossover signings will become the new standard for major storylines, potentially inflating talent costs across the entire industry. Multiple wrestling promotions have reportedly reached out to former UFC fighters, Olympic athletes, and professional boxers, creating a talent acquisition arms race that could reshape the entire landscape of sports entertainment. The traditional pathway from wrestling school to main event status is being challenged by this new model, where legitimate athletic credentials can fast-track performers to top-tier storylines. Other celebrities and figures affected by this revelation extend far beyond the wrestling world and into mainstream entertainment and sports. Francis Ngannou's successful transition has reportedly inspired other UFC fighters to explore wrestling opportunities, with multiple sources confirming that several high-profile combat sports athletes have reached out to WWE about potential crossover deals. Hollywood action stars who have previously dismissed wrestling as beneath their status are now viewing it as a legitimate platform for showcasing their physical abilities and reaching new audiences. The success of this storyline has attracted attention from major sports agents who previously ignored wrestling, with several prominent agencies now actively seeking wrestling opportunities for their combat sports and athletic clients. Multiple sources verify that streaming platforms and television networks are taking notice of the mainstream attention this crossover has generated, potentially leading to new distribution deals and expanded coverage for wrestling content. The cultural impact extends to social media influencers and content creators who are now viewing wrestling as a viable platform for expanding their reach and demonstrating their entertainment value. Cultural and social implications of this groundbreaking moment are already reshaping how society views professional wrestling and its place in the broader entertainment landscape. The successful integration of a legitimate UFC champion has elevated wrestling's credibility in ways that traditional storylines never could, forcing mainstream sports media to treat WWE developments as legitimate news rather than entertainment fluff. Academic researchers studying sports entertainment are calling this a watershed moment that bridges the gap between scripted entertainment and legitimate athletic competition. The psychological impact on wrestling fans has been profound, with many reporting that this storyline has rekindled their passion for the industry and attracted friends and family members who previously dismissed wrestling as fake or childish. Multiple sources confirm that this revelation has sparked discussions in sports bars, gyms, and social settings, where wrestling was previously ignored or mocked, creating cultural conversations that extend far beyond traditional wrestling audiences. The success of this crossover is being studied by entertainment industry analysts as a potential model for other forms of scripted sports and reality-based entertainment programming. Where everyone stands now in this absolutely explosive situation reveals a wrestling landscape that has been permanently transformed by Roman Reigns' strategic masterstroke. The Tribal Chief has positioned himself at the head of the most powerful faction in WWE history, with legitimate combat credentials and supernatural strength backing his claim to being the head of the table. Francis Ngannou is reportedly adapting to WWE's style faster than anyone expected, with sources close to his training confirming that his natural athleticism and competitive drive are translating perfectly to sports entertainment. Braun Strowman's return has been seamlessly integrated into the Shield's dynamic, with his previous WWE experience helping to bridge the gap between Ngannou's combat sports background and wrestling's entertainment requirements. Paul Heyman's faction, meanwhile, is scrambling to find ways to remain relevant against opponents who bring unprecedented levels of authenticity and power to their confrontations. Multiple sources confirm that creative teams are working overtime to develop storylines that can showcase this new Shield's capabilities while maintaining the dramatic tension that makes wrestling compelling. Latest developments and updates continue to emerge daily as this story evolves in real time, with new revelations constantly reshaping our understanding of WWE's long-term strategy. Sources familiar with WWE's production schedule confirm that multiple pay-per-view events are being restructured to accommodate storylines featuring the new Shield, with SummerSlam already being positioned as a potential showcase for their dominance. Francis Ngannou's training progress is reportedly exceeding all expectations, with WWE trainers amazed at how quickly he's mastering wrestling techniques while maintaining his devastating striking ability. Braun Strowman has been working closely with both Roman and Ngannou to develop new combination moves and strategies that utilize all three members' unique strengths. Behind-the-scenes footage leaked to wrestling journalists shows the trio developing chemistry that rivals the original Shield's legendary teamwork, suggesting that their in-ring performances will be even more impressive than their shocking debut. Ongoing legal and professional consequences of this revelation continue to unfold as the wrestling industry adapts to this new reality that WWE has created. Francis Ngannou's contract negotiations with other combat sports organizations have reportedly been affected by his WWE success, with multiple promotions now viewing him as a crossover star rather than just a fighter. Sources close to UFC confirm that they're monitoring his wrestling career closely, with some executives reportedly concerned about the precedent his success might set for other fighters considering similar transitions. Braun Strowman's return has sparked discussions about WWE's talent retention strategies, with multiple wrestlers reportedly using his successful comeback as leverage in their own contract negotiations. This is the kind of industry-changing content that deserves maximum exposure. Hit that hype button to help us continue investigating the behind-the-scenes power plays that are reshaping professional wrestling. The legal complexity of managing crossover athletes has forced WWE to develop new contract structures and insurance policies that could become industry standards for future signings. What's coming next in this absolutely mind-blowing saga will determine whether this moment becomes a footnote in wrestling history or the beginning of a complete industry transformation that changes sports entertainment forever. Multiple sources familiar with WWE's long-term planning confirm that this new Shield formation is designed to carry major storylines for at least the next 2 years, with WrestleMania already being positioned as a potential culmination of their dominance. The success of Francis Ngannou's integration has reportedly inspired WWE executives to actively pursue other crossover signings, with sources confirming that negotiations are already underway with athletes from boxing, mixed martial arts, and even Olympic sports. Braun Strowman's seamless return has proven that WWE's talent development system can successfully reintegrate former stars while elevating them to new levels of relevance and power. The psychological impact on other wrestlers has created a competitive environment where everyone is pushing themselves to new levels of performance and character development, potentially leading to an overall elevation in WWE's product quality. Industry analysts predict that this storyline's success will force other wrestling promotions to pursue their own crossover signings, creating a talent acquisition arms race that could reshape the entire landscape of sports entertainment. Unresolved mysteries and questions surrounding this revelation continue to fuel speculation and investigation among wrestling fans and industry insiders. The most intriguing mystery involves the selection criteria Roman Reigns used to choose his new Shield members, with sources hinting that there were specific requirements beyond just athletic ability and star power. Multiple insiders suggest that psychological compatibility and long-term commitment were major factors, but the exact process remains shrouded in secrecy. Another unresolved question involves the potential for additional Shield members, with some sources hinting that this trio might not be the final form of the faction. The financial details of these signings remain largely confidential, but industry analysts are speculating about contract structures that could set new precedents for crossover athlete compensation in wrestling. Potential future revelations that could emerge from this storyline have wrestling fans and industry insiders on the edge of their seats, waiting for the next bombshell to drop. Sources close to WWE's creative team hint that the full scope of Roman's master plan hasn't been revealed yet, suggesting that additional surprises are planned for future events. The success of this crossover has reportedly attracted interest from other high-profile athletes and celebrities who are now considering wrestling opportunities, potentially leading to even more shocking debuts and storyline developments. Multiple insiders suggest that this new Shield's dominance will eventually face challenges from unexpected sources, with some hinting that other wrestling promotions might attempt to create their own super factions to compete with WWE's new standard. The final community engagement and subscription drive for this absolutely explosive expose reflects the incredible journey we've taken together through one of wrestling's most shocking revelations. We're about to reveal the most mind-blowing part of this entire story, but first, if this comprehensive investigation has completely blown your mind and changed how you see WWE forever, give it the hype it deserves, because your support directly funds more deep dive investigations into the secret storylines and behind-the-scenes power plays that shape the wrestling industry. The wrestling community's response to this revelation has been unprecedented, with fans creating their own content, theories, and investigations that continue to uncover new details about this historic moment. Your engagement with content like this sends a message to WWE and other promotions that fans demand authenticity, creativity, and storylines that respect their intelligence and passion for the industry. Subscribe now to stay ahead of the curve as this story continues to evolve, because if this revelation taught us anything, it's that the most shocking moments in wrestling happen when we least expect them. And you don't want to miss the next earth-shattering development that could change everything once again.